Ever wondered what happens when karma finally catches up? When the people who destroyed lives face the consequences they deserve? You're about to find out. This is Revenge. Tell us where every story proves that justice might be delayed, but it's never denied. Let's dive in. The day I signed my divorce papers, Victoria looked happier than she had on our wedding day. Her smile was radiant, her eyes bright with anticipation for a future that didn't include me. She practically skipped out of the courthouse, already texting someone on her phone before she even reached her car. I stood there in my wrinkled suit, the same one I'd worn to court-mandated mediation sessions for 6 months, and watched the woman I'd loved for 8 years disappear from my life without a backward glance. She got the house, the car, and most of our savings. I got a studio apartment above a laundromat and a wake-up call that would change everything. But 3 years later, when Victoria saw me at that charity gala downtown, her face went from confident to confused to completely shattered in about 5 seconds. She grabbed my arm like she was drowning, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my expensive suit jacket, and whispered the words I never thought I'd hear. "Honey, do you remember me?" My name is Cameron Foster, and this is the story of how losing everything taught me who I really was. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your support helps me bring you more incredible true stories like this one. And don't forget to like this video. It really makes a difference. 8 years ago, I was working as a mid-level accountant at Harrison & Associates, pulling in a decent $65,000 a year. Nothing spectacular, but steady, reliable, safe. That's what Victoria said she loved about me when we first met at her friend's barbecue. "You're so stable." "Cameron, so dependable." At the time, I thought those were compliments. Turns out they were predictions of why she'd eventually leave. Victoria worked in marketing at a tech startup, always chasing the next big thing, the next promotion, the next level of success. She was beautiful, ambitious, and completely out of my league. Or so I thought. When she agreed to marry me after 2 years of dating, I felt like I'd won the lottery. Our wedding was modest. We couldn't afford the destination ceremony Victoria wanted, so we compromised with a nice reception at a local venue. I remember her scrolling through Instagram during our honeymoon in Cancun, looking at other couples' extravagant weddings with this expression I couldn't quite read. Disappointment. Maybe. Or regret. The first few years were good. Not perfect, but good. We bought a small house in the suburbs, adopted a rescue dog named Chester, and settled into what I thought was a comfortable life together. I'd come home from work. Victoria would already be there or working late. And we'd have dinner, watch TV, go to bed, rinse and repeat. But somewhere around year 5, things shifted. Victoria started staying later at work. She joined a gym that had classes at 6 a.m. and 8 p.m., which meant I barely saw her. She developed new interests, new friends, new habits that didn't include me. "You never want to do anything exciting, Cameron?" she'd say when I suggested staying in instead of going to another networking event. "You're content with mediocrity." I tried to change. I really did. I suggested weekend trips, new restaurants, activities outside our routine. But nothing was ever quite right. The restaurants weren't trendy enough. The trips weren't exotic enough. I wasn't enough. The divorce conversation happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were trash day, and I'd just taken out the garbage when Victoria sat me down at our kitchen table with that look on her face. The one that said she'd already made up her mind and was just going through the formality of telling me. "Cameron, I want a divorce." 5 words. That's all it took to dismantle 8 years of marriage. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because I'm not happy. Because we want different things. Because I deserve more than this." She gestured around our kitchen, at the life we'd built together, like it was a prison she needed to escape. "Is there someone else?" The question came out quieter than I intended. Victoria hesitated for just a moment. "That's not relevant." Which was all the answer I needed. His name was Damian Reynolds. I found out later he was a consultant at her company, drove a Tesla, and had an apartment in the expensive part of downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Everything I wasn't. The divorce process was brutal. Victoria wanted everything, and her lawyer made sure she got it. The house we'd bought together, purchased mostly with an inheritance from my grandmother. The car I'd been making payments on for 3 years. Our savings account, which I'd been the primary contributor to since Victoria liked to spend her money on clothes, travel, and experiences. "You'll be fine, Cameron," her lawyer said during mediation. "You're young, employed. You'll rebuild." What he didn't say was that Victoria had already rebuilt. With Damien. In the life she'd started constructing while still wearing my ring. The day we finalized everything, Victoria showed up to the courthouse looking like she was going to a celebration instead of ending a marriage. She wore a white sundress, had her hair professionally styled, and kept checking her phone with this smile I recognized. The same smile she used to give me during our first year together, when the judge declared us officially divorced. Victoria practically floated out of the courtroom. I watched her through the window as she met Damien in the parking lot, saw him spin her around in a hug, saw them kiss like characters in a romance movie. I stood there for 20 minutes after they left, trying to figure out where everything had gone wrong, trying to understand how I'd become so invisible to the woman who'd promised to love me forever. That night, I moved into a studio apartment above May's Laundromat on Fletcher Street. The rent was $800 a month, and the place smelled like industrial detergent and broken dreams. I had a futon that doubled as my bed and couch, a card table for meals, and exactly 3 plates, 3 forks, and 3 glasses I'd bought at the dollar store. My brother, Lucas, called that first night. "Cam, you okay?" "Define okay," I said, staring at the water-stained ceiling. "Come stay with me and Jennifer. We've got the spare room." "I appreciate it, but I need to do this on my own." "Do what on your own?" "Torture yourself in a crappy apartment. Figure out who I am without her." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "You know who you are, Cam. You're the same guy you've always been." "Yeah, that's the problem." For the first month, I barely functioned. I'd go to work, come home, eat microwave dinners, and stare at the walls. My boss, Patricia Morrison, pulled me aside one day and suggested I take some time off. "Cameron, you're not yourself lately. When's the last time you slept?" Through the night, I couldn't remember. "I'm fine, Patricia. Just going through some things." "The divorce," she said gently. "I know, and I'm sorry. But you can't keep showing up here looking like a ghost. Take a week. Sort yourself out. Your job will be here when you get back." That week turned into a turning point I didn't see coming. I spent the first 2 days doing absolutely nothing, just existing in my apartment, ordering takeout, and feeling sorry for myself. But on day 3, something shifted. I woke up angry. Not sad, not depressed, but furious. Furious at Victoria for making me feel worthless. Furious at myself for believing her. Furious at the years I'd spent trying to be enough for someone who would never be satisfied. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, really looked, and didn't recognize the man staring back. I'd gained 30 pounds during the marriage. My hair was thinning. My skin looked gray. My eyes were dead. "Who are you?" I asked my reflection. The answer came clear as day. Nobody I want to be. That afternoon, I joined the gym 2 blocks from my apartment. Not some fancy place with juice bars and hot yoga, but a real gym. Weights, heavy bags, people who looked like they'd been through hell and decided to fight back. The guy at the front desk was built like a tank and had tattoos covering both arms. "First time?" he asked. "Yeah." "What are you training for?" I thought about Victoria's face in the courthouse, about Damien's smug smile, about every time someone had made me feel small. "Everything," I said. His name was Marcus Blake, and he became my first real friend in my new life. He showed me how to lift properly, how to push past the pain, how to use the anger productively instead of letting it eat me alive. "You going through something?" Marcus said on day 5. It wasn't a question. "Divorce," he nodded. "Thought so. You got that look. Like you're trying to bench press your whole life." "Something like that." "Good. Use it. But don't let it use you." I trained 6 days a week. At first, I could barely do 20 push-ups. By month 2, I was doing 100. The weight started falling off. My body started changing. But more importantly, my mind started clearing. During my lunch breaks, instead of eating at my desk, I started reading, not fiction, but books about business, investing, personal development. I'd spent 8 years in accounting, but had never really thought about money beyond paying bills and saving for a future that never came. One book in particular changed everything. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. The concept was simple. Small, consistent actions over time create massive results. I'd been living small, thinking small, being small. It was time to think bigger. I started listening to podcasts about entrepreneurship during my commutes. I took online courses in financial planning and investment strategies. I reached out to colleagues who'd left accounting to start their own firms and asked them how they did it. 6 months after my divorce, I had a plan, a real plan. Not just a vague hope that things would get better. I'd save aggressively for 1 year while building a client base on the side. Then I'd leave Harrison and Associates and start my own financial consulting firm specializing in helping small business owners who didn't have the budget for big corporate accounting firms. Patricia thought I was crazy when I told her. "Cameron, you're throwing away a stable career for what? The chance to maybe make it on your own. The chance to build something that's actually mine," I said. She studied my face for a long moment. "You're different than you were 6 months ago. Harder somehow." "Not harder. Just done being soft." The next year was the hardest of my life. I worked my day job 40 hours a week, then spent another 30 to 40 hours building my business. I had 5 clients at first, small operations that needed basic bookkeeping and tax help. I charged reasonable rates and over-delivered on every promise. Word spread. By month 9, I had 15 clients. By month 11, I had 23. I was exhausted, running on 4 hours of sleep most nights. But I'd never felt more alive. I also kept training. The gym became my therapy, my meditation, my proof that I could transform anything if I was willing to put in the work. I'd lost 45 pounds and gained muscle I didn't know I could build. I had energy for the first time in years. When I finally left Harrison and Associates to run Foster Financial Consulting full-time, Patricia shook my hand and said, "I'm proud of you, Cameron. You proved me wrong. You gave me the week off that started all this." I reminded her. "So technically, you helped prove yourself wrong." She laughed. "Maybe I did." Year 2 of my new life was about refinement. I hired an assistant, Jennifer Martinez, who was better organized than I'd ever be. I moved my office from my apartment to a small suite downtown. I invested in better software, better systems, better everything. My client base grew to 50, then 75, then 100. I was making more money than I ever had at Harrison and Associates, but more importantly, I was building something meaningful. My clients weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They were people with dreams and families and businesses they'd built with their own hands. I helped a restaurant owner restructure his debt and avoid bankruptcy. I helped a single mother launch her online boutique with a financial plan that actually worked. I helped a retired teacher invest his pension so he could leave something behind for his grandkids. The work mattered. I mattered. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I also started dating, though nothing serious. A few dinners here and there, a couple of short relationships that fizzled out naturally. I wasn't looking for anything permanent. I was too busy building my life to worry about sharing it with someone else. But the biggest change was internal. I'd spent so many years defining myself by Victoria's standards, measuring my worth by her approval. Now I was defining myself by my own standards, measuring my worth by my own growth. I bought a condo in a nice part of town. Not as flashy as the house I'd lost, but modern, clean, and completely mine. I bought a car I actually wanted instead of something practical and boring. I started dressing better, not to impress anyone, but because I liked how I felt in clothes that fit properly. Lucas noticed the change when I showed up for Christmas at his house. "Jesus, Cam, you look like a completely different person." "I am a completely different person," I said. "Victoria see you lately? No idea. Don't keep tabs on her." That was true. I'd blocked her on everything and hadn't thought about her in months. I was too busy living to waste time wondering what my ex-wife was doing. But Jennifer, who handled my schedule and knew everything about everyone, mentioned one day that she'd seen Victoria's engagement photos on social media. To Damien, I asked, not because I cared, but because I was curious if the upgrade had worked out. Yeah, looks like they're getting married next spring. Fancy wedding in Napa Valley from what the posts say. Good for them. Jennifer studied my face. You really don't care, do you? Not even a little bit. That's a whole different life. A whole different version of me who doesn't exist anymore. Which brings me to the gala. The Metropolitan Children's Hospital Charity Gala. To be exact, one of my clients sat on the board and had invited me, thinking it would be good networking. I almost didn't go because black tie events weren't really my scene. But something made me say yes. I wore a custom-tailored tuxedo I'd bought for another event, got a fresh haircut, and showed up feeling confident. The venue was the Grand Belmore Hotel, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers, and people who looked like they stepped out of a magazine. I was talking to a potential client about his expanding restaurant chain when I felt someone staring at me. You know that feeling when you can sense eyes on you? I turned around and there she was. Victoria. She was standing about 20 feet away, champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips, staring at me like she'd seen a ghost. She was wearing an expensive-looking black dress, her hair shorter than it used to be, and she looked older somehow. Not in a bad way, just different. Our eyes met, and for a second neither of us moved. Then she started walking toward me, her expression shifting from shock to confusion to something I couldn't quite identify. Cameron, she said when she reached me, her voice uncertain. Hello, Victoria. She looked me up and down, taking in the tailored tux, the confident posture, the 45 pounds of missing weight and added muscle. I almost didn't recognize you. You look so different. 3 years will do that. You look amazing. I mean, you look really good. What have you been doing? Living, I said simply. She laughed nervously. I mean, what are you doing here? This is a pretty high-end event. I'm here with a client. Damien sits on the hospital board. We're engaged. She held up her left hand, showing off a diamond that probably cost more than my first car. Congratulations. Thanks. She was still staring at me like she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. Cameron, I have to say, you're like a completely different person. The weight loss, the confidence, the everything. It's incredible. Divorce was good for me. The words came out harsher than I intended, but Victoria didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed again, that same nervous laugh. I can see that. You're not the same man I left. No, I agreed. I'm not. A tall, silver-haired man approached us then, placing his hand possessively on Victoria's lower back. Damien Reynolds in the flesh, looking exactly like his Instagram photos. Successful, polished, confident. Honey, who's your friend? He asked Victoria, but his eyes were on me, sizing me up. This is Cameron, my ex-husband. The way she said it made it sound like I was a relic from ancient history instead of someone she'd been married to. 3 years ago. Damien's expression changed slightly. Cameron Foster, the accountant. Financial consultant now, I corrected. I run my own firm. Foster Financial Consulting, Damien said, recognition dawning. I've heard of you. You helped the Matsumoto restaurant chain restructure their expansion strategy. Very impressive work. Thank you. Victoria was looking between us, confused. You've heard of Cameron. Of course. His firm's developing quite a reputation in the small business sector. Very smart approach, focusing on underserved markets. Damien extended his hand. I'm Damien Reynolds, Meridian Consulting Group. I shook his hand firmly. I know who you are. We stood there for a moment, the three of us forming an awkward triangle. Victoria looked uncomfortable in a way I'd never seen her. She kept fidgeting with her engagement ring, kept glancing at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Cameron, she said finally, could I talk to you for a minute? Privately. Damien frowned. Victoria, we're supposed to. Just a minute. Honey, I'll be right back. She pulled me toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the crowd and the music. When we stopped, she turned to face me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Honey, she said softly, and the word hit me like a punch. Do you remember me? I stared at her. What kind of question is that? I mean, do you remember us? The way we were, because looking at you now, it's like you're a completely different person, like the Cameron I knew doesn't exist anymore. He doesn't, I said. That Cameron died in a studio apartment above a laundromat. This Cameron built himself from scratch. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake. Those 4 words hung in the air between us. Victoria. No, listen. I made a terrible mistake. I thought I wanted all of this. She gestured around the gala, at the wealth and status and prestige. But seeing you now, seeing what you've become, I realize I gave up the only real thing I ever had. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no triumph. Just a profound sense of being exactly where I was supposed to be. You didn't give me up. Victoria, you gave up a version of me that was never going to make you happy. And you were right to do it. But look at you now. You're successful, confident. You're exactly the kind of man I'm exactly the kind of man I needed to become for myself. I interrupted gently. Not for you, not for anyone else. For me. She reached out and touched my arm, her hand trembling slightly. Cameron, I still have feelings for you. I think I always will. I looked down at her, hand on my arm, then back at her face. Victoria. You're engaged to Damien. You're planning a wedding in Napa Valley. You're living the life you wanted. I thought I wanted this. But seeing you tonight, I realized I wanted you. The you that you are now. The me that I am now exists because you left, I said quietly. You did us both a favor. You found what you were looking for, and I found who I was supposed to be. That's not a mistake. That's just life. Victoria was crying now, mascara starting to run down her cheeks. So, that's it. We just pretend we never meant anything to each other. We meant everything to each other at the time. But that time is over. You need to let it go. How can you be so calm about this? Don't you feel anything I thought about the question? Did I feel anything? Anger number sadness, number regret, absolutely not. I feel grateful, I said finally. Grateful that you had the courage to end something that wasn't working. Grateful that you forced me to rebuild myself. Grateful that I got to discover who I really am. Cameron, go back to Damien. Victoria, he's a good man, and he clearly loves you. Build a life with him. Be happy. But don't look back at what we had and think you made a mistake. You made the right choice for both of us. I walked away before she could respond, leaving her standing alone in that corner of the ballroom. I didn't look back. The next day, Jennifer came into my office with a weird expression on her face. You're not going to believe this. Try me. Victoria Reynolds called. She wants to set up a meeting to discuss potential consulting services for her and her fiancé. I laughed. Tell her we're not taking new clients right now. You sure? Completely sure. Some doors close for a reason, Jennifer. Best to keep them closed. That was 6 months ago. I heard through the grapevine that Victoria and Damien got married as planned. Honeymooned in Bali. Bought a house in the suburbs that probably costs more than I'll make in 5 years. Good for them. I mean that sincerely. As for me, Foster Financial Consulting just landed its biggest client yet. A regional hospital chain that needs complete financial restructuring. The kind of contract that will triple my revenue and require hiring 5 new consultants. I bought a house last month. 3 bedrooms. Home office. A yard for the dog I'm thinking of about adopting. Nothing extravagant, but it's mine. I'm dating someone new. Her name is Samantha. She's a teacher, makes decent money. But nothing spectacular. And she doesn't care about status or prestige. She likes me for who I am, not what I can give her. Last week, Lucas and I were having beers at his place when he brought it up. You ever think about Victoria sometimes? I admitted. Not in a sad way. More like remembering a book I read once. It was interesting while it lasted. But I've moved on to better stories. That's healthy. Took me a while to get here. You think she regrets leaving? I thought about Victoria's face at the gala. The way she'd looked at me like I was something she'd lost. Probably. But regret is just the price you pay for the choices you make. We all pay it eventually. You ever regret anything about how it all went down? I considered the question carefully. Did I regret the 8 years with Victoria? The divorce, the studio apartment above the laundromat, the year of brutal 80-hour work weeks? Not for a second, I said finally. Every single thing that happened to me made me who I am today. And I'm exactly who I was supposed to become. Looking back now, I realize Victoria did me the greatest favor of my life. She showed me that being comfortable isn't the same as being happy. That stability without growth is just another word for stagnation. That sometimes losing everything is the only way to find out what you're really made of. The day she walked out of that courthouse glowing with happiness about her new future. I was devastated. But that devastation became the fuel for transformation. So, thank you. Victoria, thank you for leaving. Thank you for forcing me to rebuild from scratch. Thank you for showing me that the man I was wasn't the man I could become. And when we ran into each other at that gala, when your face fell and you asked if I remembered you, my answer should have been different. Yes, I remember you. You're the woman who broke me so completely that I had no choice but to build myself into something stronger. You're the catalyst for the best decision I never made. And for that, I'll always be grateful. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below about a time when losing something led to finding yourself. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about transformation, redemption, and discovering who you're really meant to be. Remember, sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having your old life completely destroyed. It makes room for something better to grow in its place. Until next time, keep building yourself into the person you're meant to become. And that's how karma delivered justice. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that comebacks are real. Drop a comment below telling us what you would have done in this situation, or share your own revenge story. We read every single comment. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications because we post new revenge stories every week. And trust me, the next one is even more unbelievable. Remember, the best revenge is massive success. Until next time, this is Revenge Tell Us, where justice always wins.